in terms of the software interface that controls the fan functionality within the operating system, as well as some tweaks that we've made to the firmware controller and the Super I/O controller for giving us more advanced auto-calibration processes for both 3-pin and 4-pin fans on the motherboard. So with that, let's go ahead and just flip over in the box, take a look at any outstanding key points, and then from there we're going to jump over to the motherboard. Okay, moving to the inside of the flap here, we've got a couple of different items that we want to note. One of them is going to be our USB Bios Flashback, which is the easiest way to go ahead and either recover or update your UEFI BIOS, and we'll talk about that when we actually take a look at the backplane of the motherboard. As well as we've got our USB 3 boost, the ultimate way to go ahead and enhance both USB 2 and USB 3 performance on any one of your USB ports. The one cool addition that we've made for this generation is that we've extended USB 3 boost to not only our add-in controllers from AS Media, but to the native actual controllers that are offered by the chipset itself. So that's a really cool plus. In addition to that, we've also got iNetwork Control, which is a brand new form of packet priority software that works in conjunction with the native Intel LAN controller that we've put onto the motherboard. So with that, that covers a couple of things that we see here on the box. We're going to go ahead and jump over to the motherboard. So let's go ahead now, take a look at the board. So we've got the star of the show here, the Deluxe motherboard, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at the topology and overall layout, as well as the connectivity that we offer on the board. So this being a flagship motherboard, it pretty much presents overall the richest connectivity that we're going to offer normally in our channel lineup. Now, there's an exception that this generation we're actually going to be coming out with a premium that's even more feature-rich in terms of the connectivity and expansion options. But as a general rule of thumb, Deluxe is pretty much going to give you everything you're looking for in terms of input, output, and overall PCIe expansion. So with that noted, let's take a look actually at how things stack up. So from the top here, we can see we have our standard 8-pin CPU power connection. Moving over from there, we can see that we have a very advanced, robust heatsink and VRM assembly. So we have a full actual heat pipe assembly running from the actual VRM heatsinks onto a secondary heatsink, which is going to go ahead and extend the heat dissipation abilities of the VRM. So this is great because it helps us to go ahead and bring more normalized and more balanced temperatures, especially as we start to overclock the system. The Deluxe is really going to be outstanding in this regard, able to easily hit the peak of what the Ivy Bridge CPU is going to be able to offer in terms of 4.7, 4.8 plus frequencies. And that, of course, is definitely backed up by the 16-phase VRM that we have incorporated on the board. Now moving from there, we can see that we actually have 4 Dimm Banks. As always, you can't see it because we haven't populated, but we have color coding, blue and black, to allow you to easily differentiate between channels. And you can see that you've got a maximum population support in normal situations of either 32 gigabytes or potentially, if you were going to go ahead and utilize 8 gigabyte DIMMs, 32 gigs. Now in this situation, we can see here we've got the G.Skill Ripjaw Z's, 4 gigabytes. DIMMs by 4, so that's going to go ahead and give us 16 gigs. Now what's special here in terms of what we've done that you can't readily see is we have a brand new trace layout. Trace layout is the actual way that we trace the actual lines between the CPU socket and the actual Dimm Banks themselves. This is critical to go ahead and helping you give enhanced performance scaling, overclockability, and stability, as well as compatibility. This is one of the points that we've always prided ourselves on in terms of good design. And for this generation of motherboards, we've completely bucked the current trend, which is what's referred to as a daisy chain topology. We're using a brand new internally developed topology layout called T-topology, and this gives us the ability to go ahead and run very high frequencies, especially in fully loaded DIMM configurations. So with these Ripjaw Z 2400s, that's not a problem on our boards, especially with this Deluxe. And keep in mind that actually we've been able to get even higher levels of performance with some of the higher end Ripjaw Zs that might be coming to the market, such as 4DIMM 2800. So really impressive in terms of that T-topology trace layout. So moving over from there, let's go ahead and take a look here at the left-hand side of the motherboard and some of the connections that we have available to us. So first off, we've got this TPU switch right here. TPU switch is an easy way to go ahead and access the actual TPU controller on the motherboard that will interface with the CPU and give us a quick and easy low-level overclock. So all you would have to do when first setting up the system is flip that switch in the other direction. If let's say you were running like a 3770K, give you approximately about a 4.3 gigahertz overclock from that baseline of 3.7. So really easy to go ahead and give yourself a nice bump, which is the flip of the switch. Moving over, we've got a 4-pin PWM band header. We'll go ahead and we'll count these as we go around here with 2 ones that we had on the top as well. The 2 headers at the top are ideally priced to go ahead and give you the most flexibility if you're considering a push and pull fan configuration on a large CPU cooler, or even if you're actually considering dual fans for a closed loop water cooling system like an Antec Cooler 920 or a Corsair H100. So moving down from here, we've got, of course, our standard 24-pin motherboard power connection. Below that, we've got another 4-pin PWM chassis fan header. We then have a front USB 3 header. So that's great for any of the chassis that are equipped with front USB 3, or if you've got one of those newer card readers that also support front USB 3. Now, just for you guys to be aware of, the front USB 3 port is powered by the Intel controller, not by an add-in controller. This is defined by Intel's specification layout. This is important because for this controller, we are enhancing its performance through our USB 3 boost technology. This allows us to go ahead and take the normal mode of operation from BOT, which is a lower performing legacy mode of operation, and change it into the SCSI protocol mode of operation, and even potentially for Windows 8 later on, actually UASP operation. So it's awesome that we're going to be able to go ahead and provide better performance in stock for this Intel front USB 3. Now moving down from there, we've got our standard 8 serial ATA ports. They're all right angles, you can see, so that we don't have any impact mechanical conflicts with, of course, any of the PCIe expansion. We've got the 2 SATA 6G ports here. We have the 4 SATA 3G ports here. These are all provided by the PCH. And then we've got 2 more SATA 6G ports on here that are provided by an add-in controller. Now, the Z77 chipset does support SSD caching just like the Z68 chipset. But one thing that we know for Deluxe series users is a lot of you guys are interested in running a high performance RAID, whether that's with mechanical hard drives or whether that's with SSDs. The disadvantage of that is that you're normally going to want to go ahead and connect those to your SATA 6G ports for the best performance because the PCH has the most bandwidth. But if you're going to go ahead and do that, then you kill your ability to go ahead and have SSD caching. What we've received in terms of feedback from you guys is that you guys still want to have that function. So you could go ahead and still put your SSDs on these 2 ports, get your high performance RAID for your operating system, but then go ahead and still attach a 2 terabyte hard drive here, and then let's say like a 60 gigabyte SSD onto the SSD caching port, and go ahead and accelerate and get much better read performance, as well as application launch performance for your storage array. So you get kind of the best of the both worlds. So that's part of the reason why we maintain the actual SSD caching implementation on the add-in controller. Moving down from there, we've got, of course, a whole bunch of connectivity that we see here on the bottom of the board. So we've got the front chassis connections, which we will utilize with our Q connector in terms of the power, reset, hard drive LED, and whatnot. Moving forward from there, we've got our debug LED. The debug LED is a very easy way in terms of referencing a quick diagnostic code that will let you know if there's an issue when your system is posting, such as maybe potentially memory compatibility issue, CPU initialization problems, VGA, and add-in card initialization problem, any number of different issues. Now you will have to visually take a look at this information in the manual to know what the debug code is. If you're looking for a little bit easier method, we do maintain an actual what's called QLED lighting system, where there are 4 LEDs that are sprinkled throughout the board. Take, for instance, up here, there is one that's for the DRAM. This is a visual LED mechanism that will allow you to visually look at the motherboard and know if there's an issue in relation to that area. So we have an LED for the CPU, an LED for the memory, an LED for the graphics card, and then an LED for the boot device for your hard drive. So if you don't necessarily understand the debug code, you can always look at the QLED system. It's a quick way of finding out if you have a problem. Moving over from there, we've got another 4-pin chassis header for the fan connection. We have 2 front USB 2 ports. We have a clear CMOS. Now this connection right here is very special. This is an actual Thunderbolt header. What that means is, yes, you heard me right, Thunderbolt. Our motherboard here in terms of the Deluxe is fully compatible with actually Thunderbolt. What we're going to do is we're going to release a actual expansion Thunderbolt card, which would plug into a by 4 PCIe slot, which all our motherboards in the channel series have been designated to support. You'd plug that into this slot, run a cable from that card to that header, and that would enable a Thunderbolt output. So if you're looking for the fastest level of performance in terms of external connectivity, even faster than SATA 6G eSATA, as well as USB 3, Thunderbolt's going to get it done for you, and we're going to be able to equip that on our Z77 base boards. So a very cool expansion option. Moving over from there, of course, we've got our classic reset and power buttons. We then have our EPU switch. EPU switch is a great and easy way to not affect performance, but go ahead and allow us to have a little bit lower operating temperatures and lower power consumption. What that switch will actually execute is a quick low-level undervolt. Won't affect your performance, just provides less voltage to the CPU so that we're consuming less power and producing a little bit lower idle as well as low temperatures when you're working on your system. And then lastly right here, we've got our front audio connection, which is pretty straightforward for the front audio header, HD audio header that's in the majority of all your chassis that are out there. So from the top here, in terms of our PCI connectivity, you can see that we've eliminated all legacy connections. There's no PCI. We've gone ahead and maintained everything being optimal for this generation and going forward. So from the top, we've got a by 1 PCIe. Then we have a secondary physical by 16 PCIe, by 1, physical by 16, by 1, and physical by 16. Now keep in mind, because of the PCIe lanes that are provided from the CPU chipset, this lane is the only one that will run at full by 16. When you're utilizing 2, it will drop down to an 8 by 8 level of operation. Now with Ivy Bridge, you do have Gen 3 support though, so keep in mind that that's going to be Gen 3 operational bandwidth, which is significantly more than Gen 2 operational bandwidth. Now one other item that is important on the Deluxe board is this little chip that's right here in the middle. This is a Plx chip. Now this is special because as all our Deluxe boards have so much in terms of the active connectivity that's available, whether it's SATA ports, front USB 3, multi-GPU ports, or a lot of connections on the back plane, you only have so many lanes. So what that chip does is actually multiplexes these lanes and allows us to drive more active devices at one time. So if you're the type of user that wants to be able to run, let's say, Crossfire and SLI, you want to be using front USB 3, add-in storage and other devices on the back, the Deluxe is a really great option because normally if you didn't have this type of PLX implementation, some of these controllers on the motherboard are going to get disabled once you've gone ahead and populated a number of different expansion slots as well as a number of different controllers. So one of the other standout features on the Deluxe compared to, let's say, like our Pro or standard SKUs. So with covering now the PCIe slot layout, let's go ahead and lastly take a look at the actual back I/O on the board. Now that we've gone ahead and finished up all the physical layout on the front side of the board, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the back side of the motherboard, specifically the display output connectivity and the overall I/O, input and output. So let's go ahead and start off from the top. We've got 4 USB 2 ports. These ports are actually noted with a sticker on their shielding, which lets you know that this is where you should be plugging in your keyboard or mouse. This is critical because when you first install your operating system, add-in controller ports like the USB 3 ports are not normally recognized, so normally your USB keyboard and your USB mouse would not function correctly, so make sure to keep that in mind. So once again, 4 USB 2 ports there at the top. Now moving down below, we've got 4 more additional ports, with the first 2 ports being red, and those are eSATA. Those are SATA 6G capable ports, non-powered. That means that you will have to provide power for your external eSATA based device. The fantastic thing though is that these are SATA 6G capable, really allowing for a very high level of performance, especially if you're interested in large volume backups or audio and video editing from an external array. So nice plus there. In addition to that, we've got 2 USB 3 boost ports. These are AS Media add-in controller ports, and they support both BOT, SCSI, and UASP modes of operation. If you're more interested in finding about what USB 3 Boost specifically is make sure to check out our USB 3 Boost video. But these ports definitely allow for a high level of performance when working with storage-based devices, especially flash-based devices like external SSDs, flash drives, and things along those lines. So moving down from there, we've got our display output connectivity and audio. So we have an optical output, and then we have HDMI and DisplayPort. The great thing about these outputs is that they work in conjunction with the new Ivy Bridge graphics processor. Now this allows for high grade performance in terms of the display output functionality, like 3D support, as well as normal high resolution support. Where normally in previous generations the controller was really best defined by 1080p resolutions, you now have the ability to drive higher resolutions than that through this integrated display output, and both carry audio, which is another nice plus. Now in addition to this, our motherboard does come featured with Lucid's brand new virtual MVP software. The MVP software works with a feature that's called high performance, as well as virtual VSync. If you want to find out more about those, make sure to check out the videos that denote those 2 technologies. Moving down from there, we've got 2 more USB 3 boost ports. Okay, these are provided once again by the AS Media add-on controller. And then from here, we have a Realtek Gigabit Ethernet port. This is based off of the 8111F controller. Moving down from there, we've got a USB BIOS Flashback button. This button actually works with this port right below it. Now this is a USB 3 port that's natively provided by the Intel PCH, but it also serves as our USB BIOS Flashback port. Great thing about this port is it allows you to easily update the UEFI in the motherboard without any CPU, without any memory, and without any graphics card. All you have to have is just standby power. That means that 24 power and that 8-pin power plugged in, you go ahead and take your flash file, you plug the USB flash drive into that port, hold down that button for 3 seconds, you'll start to see that blinking and you're good to go. So a great way to go ahead and easily update your UEFI or to go ahead and recover it in the event that maybe you have like a surge, spike, or sag, or maybe you overclock the board too hard. Going down from there, as I noted before, we've got the USB 3 port. 2 of these, those are specifically provided by the Intel PCH, which currently under Windows 7 is not enabled for UASP support. We can still go ahead and extend the performance with our USB 3 Boost software to either bot mode operation, which is normal, or the enhanced turbo mode of operation. And then lastly, we have our fantastic Intel native Gigabit Ethernet port. Now on top of that, not only are we getting better performance, better functionality, and overall lower CPU utilization because it's the Intel network controller, and we have also the robust power management as well as performance management software in the Intel Pro set, but we have a brand new piece of software that's called iNetwork Control. iNetwork Control will work with that port and allow us to adjust packet priority per any network application. So let's say like your web browser, Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, whatever it may be that you might be using, maybe download management software, torrent clients, you can go ahead and assign whichever one you want to receive priority to get the best performance out of that application that mirrors your usage at home. Lastly from there, we've of course got HD audio support powered by our Realtek 898 codec on board, which has been enhanced with the DTS Ultra 2 PC package, which gives us DTS